All right, folks. Good morning, or, good afternoon, depending on what time it is. It's either morning or afternoon for you, but in any event, I hope it's a good one. Of course, it's me, Mr. Tuttle, here about to talk about some solutions and some kind of explanation for all of the questions on the final exam review, part 1. So I'm going to take it page by page. As you can see up in the top left corner, I've got everything I need for page 1. I think there's 7 pages altogether on this thing. So there'll be 6 more videos after this. So we got a lot of work to do. Let's get started with number 1. Okay, so number 1. So this is some practice with like definitions and terms and how we name things, lines, rays, segments, angles, and stuff like that. And so the first 3 questions are all about this diagram right here. Okay, we've got a bunch of points, a bunch of segments, a bunch of rays, a bunch of angles, and we have to sort of figure out how to name and identify certain things. So for question number 1 is actually 3 parts. There's an A, B, and a C. So for 1A, it says to give another name for the ray CB. Okay, so where is the ray CB? The ray CB is right here, right? So the end point of the ray is here, goes off in this direction through the point B, and of course it also includes the rest of the stuff that keeps going after point B, but that's the ray CB, starting here and going off in this direction. So another name for that, if it's a ray, okay, and we're talking about the same ray, then we have to have the same starting point, same end point. So the first letter here needs to be C. And the only other point that's identified on this ray is point E. Okay, which if I said the ray CE like this, that means exactly the same thing as the ray CB, right? Because it has the same starting point and it goes in the same direction and it includes all of the same points. Okay, so there's the only other name for the ray CB. Okay. Part B, it says give another name for the segment CG. CG is this tiny one right here from C to G. If it's a segment, the order of the endpoints doesn't matter. So I can also name this segment GC because it contains the same 2 endpoints and all of the points in between, and so we're good with that. Okay, and third part of number 1, part C, what is another name for angle 3? Angle 3 is down here. Okay, it's this angle that has point C as its vertex, and there's going to be a ton of ways that I can name this angle. There's going to be a ton of ways I can name this angle, so maybe I'll just name a couple. So any 3 points that I name that are included on the 2 rays that make this angle will be fine, as long as point C is in the middle, right? As long as point C is the vertex. So I could just go all the way to the ends and say, how about A, C, E? Okay, that's another name for angle 3. So angle A, C, E. Okay. I could switch the order. I could call this angle E, C, A if I wanted to. Still refers to the same angle because it's got the same, these points are just in opposite order, and most importantly, the C right there is the middle letter, which means that's the vertex of the angle. Okay, I'm not going to write these down, but I could do D, C, B, B, C, D, A, C, B, B, C, A. I mean, you get the idea. There's tons of ways that I could do this, but I think we're good with just those 2. Okay. All right, question number 2. Locate angle ACE. Oh, we were just working with angle ACE, and it's right here, here, and here. And what does it say? It says to measure it. Okay, so if you have a protractor at home, you can toss that protractor on there and get an angle measurement for that angle. I actually don't have a protractor handy. What are the odds of that? But what I can do is I can look at this angle and I can sort of like approximate, right, based on my understanding of the size of angles, and give a good estimate for the size of that angle. So if I measure it, if I were to measure it, well, to me it's definitely an acute angle. which is actually what part B says. Part B says, what kind of angle is it? And I don't need a protractor to tell me that that's an acute angle. So, acute. But then the measuring part, exactly how acute is it? Well, to me it almost looks like half of a right angle. You know what I mean? It almost looks like if there was a perpendicular segment in here, angle ACE looks like it's about halfway through it. So if I had to guess, maybe I'll say something around 45 degrees. Maybe a little bit less than that, but I don't know. But I think if I were to measure it, 43 degrees would be definitely within, within 5 degrees of the actual measure, and that's all we're looking for here. Okay, so I think we're good with question number 2. Okay, question number 3: name a pair of vertical angles if we're talking about angle 6 being one of them. So if angle 6, which is angle, this one right here, ABE, which angle is vertical with that? So remember, vertical angles are angles that are kind of formed by the same lines. Okay, so the lines that form angle 6 are AF and EC, right? So what other angle on the other side of this vertex is formed by the same two lines? Well, that would be angle 9, right? So angle 9 is vertical with angle 6. Okay, that's a pair of vertical angles. 3 also has 2 parts, so what's the second part? Part B. A pair of supplementary angles, angle 1. Okay, so angle 1 is up here. And remember, supplementary angles are angles whose measures will, when you add them together, add up to 180 degrees. Angle 1 and 2, right? That's a linear pair right here. So the supplementary angle with number 1 would be number 2. Okay, so, and that is a wrap for page, or not for page number 1, but just for the kind of that first part of page number 1. We still have number 4 and number 5 to look at, so let's take a look at those. Question 4, let's see, question 4 has 3 parts. A, B, C. Hopefully I gave myself enough room to put answers in there, we'll see. But it says in the diagram, name the parts that are marked as, and A is congruent segments. Okay, so if I look here, okay, I see lots of congruence marks. I see congruence marks on angles. I see congruence marks on segments. I actually see 3 different segments that have some sort of congruence marks on them, but only these 2 have the same number of congruence marks. And so what I have to say here would be that DB is congruent to EC. Okay, DB is congruent to EC. Those are the 2 congruent segments. Okay, part B, what angles are marked congruent? Well, I've got these 2 angles right here have the same number of congruence marks, so that's it. That would be angle, make myself some space here, angle FCD is congruent to angle, what's this one down here, CDB. Okay, and I have to use all 3 letters when I name those angles because there's multiple, like I couldn't just call it angle D, right? Because there's another angle over here that I could be referring to, and I couldn't just call this angle C because there's lots of angles that have the vertex C. Okay, so there's the answer for part B. Part C, what are the parts that are perpendicular? So there's a right angle happening right here at vertex B. What are the 2 things that are perpendicular that are creating that right angle? Well, that would be segment CD, okay, is perpendicular to, and I'll just say, this whole line, right? CD is perpendicular to DE, right? And I mean, you could also say DB, or you could say BD. There's lots of ways you could name that second piece, but you get the idea. Those are the 2 parts that are perpendicular, making the right angle. All right. Okay, now the last one for page 1. Draw the midpoint of the segment shown. Mark it M and mark the diagram appropriately. is one of my favorite questions because it seems easy, and it's not too bad, right? We know that a midpoint is the point on a segment that creates two congruent segments on the given segment, right? So this looks like a midpoint, right? I mean, there's point M and it's like in the middle. But to be official, remember, to mark the diagram appropriately, you have to include those congruence marks. Now I've got a fully sort of labeled and marked up diagram that shows that M is the midpoint of segment AB. All right, that's a wrap for page number 1. I'll be back with page number 2 in just a minute. Cheers.